I was looking at a map of the Horn of Africa this morning, specifically the drought patterns.
Okay.
And when you see those maps, all the red splotches, your brain it just autopilots to a specific narrative.
Right. Climate change.
Exactly. Climate change. It's a natural disaster, an act of God. It just feels inevitable. Like you can't really negotiate with the weather.
That's the default setting for most of us, I think. We frame it as something beyond our control. It kind of absolves the human systems of any real responsibility because, well, who can make it rain?
Right. But then I came across this analysis on the current crisis in Kenya, and the title alone just stops you. It's called Kenya's Drought Crisis is Not Inevitable. And it basically shreds that whole "it's just nature" argument. It suggests the hunger we're seeing affecting millions of people isn't just a lack of rain. It's the end result of a very specific chain of political choices.
It's a bold claim, but the analysis really backs it up. The core argument is that while meteorology provides the context, the drought, it's politics that provides the famine. So today, we're going to unpack how a country can have, truly, some of the most sophisticated early warning tech in the world and still end up with millions on the brink of starvation.
That's the part that really got me. This isn't a country flying blind. We're talking about satellite data, vegetation indices, all of it. So the mission for this deep dive is to figure out if the dashboard was flashing bright red, why did no one hit the brakes?
It's a lesson in systems failure. And to really get it, you have to look past the weather report and dig into the bureaucracy, the budget priorities, and this idea of devolution that was supposed to help.
Okay, but before we get into the machinery of that failure, let's just ground this in what's happening right now. Drought is a big word, but what does it actually look like in Kenya, according to this report?
The numbers are pretty stark. We're looking at over 2 million Kenyans facing what's called acute food insecurity.
And this isn't everywhere, right? It's concentrated.
Right. It's concentrated in the ASLs, the arid and semi-arid lands, mostly in the north and northeast. The analysis really zooms in on one place, Mandera County, as a sort of case study. It's currently at the alarm level.
Alarm sounds bad, but is that the worst it gets in that humanitarian jargon?
There is emergency and then famine after that, but alarm it's the tipping point. It means the whole system is buckling.
So what does that look like?
In Mandera, it's not just people skipping meals, it's widespread water shortages. Boreholes are running dry. But the real economic killer, the thing that turns a dry patch into a generational tragedy, is the death of livestock.
Right, and that's not just an agricultural issue, it's an entire economic collapse for these communities. We'll get to that. But for now, sticking with this timeline, this situation in Mandera, my first thought is, this must have snuck up on them.
And that's the central paradox. It absolutely did not sneak up on anyone.
No.
The source material is emphatic about this. Kenya has one of the most sophisticated drought early warning frameworks in the entire region.
Okay, so what does sophisticated even mean here? Are we talking about real data?
We're talking about hard data. There's a government agency, the NDMA, the National Drought Management Authority.
Right.
Their entire job is to monitor these things. They look at satellite images of vegetation, rainfall deficits, water levels even, market prices for cattle.
Market prices? Why that?
Because when herders start to sense a bad drought is coming, they try to sell off their animals before they get weak.
So if the market gets flooded and the price crashes.
Exactly. It's a leading economic indicator.
Yeah.
The NDMA puts all of this data into monthly reports. And for this current crisis, the flags were going up months ago. The warnings were crystal clear.
Okay, see, this is where I start to get lost. If I'm a government official and a report lands on my desk that basically says people are going to starve in 3 months, why would I just sit on it?
It's structural. The analysis uses this phrase that I think just captures it perfectly. Early warning outpaces early action.
The science is faster than the government.
That's it. You have 21st century monitoring tech bolted onto a 20th century, maybe even 19th century decision-making process. The red light is flashing, but the lever to actually release the money, it's rusted shark.
So let's talk about that rusted lever. The report points a big finger at something called devolution. Now, in theory, that sounds good, right? Giving more power to local counties to solve local problems.
In theory, it's the right move. The people in Mandera should have more say than someone in an office tower in Nairobi. But the report argues devolution has created a massive execution gap. Well, it's a classic case of responsibility without authority.
Ah.
The ASL counties are legally the frontline response. It's their job to act first.
Which seems fair.
It does, until you look at their budgets.
Mm-hmm.
They simply don't have the fiscal space, as economists call it. They don't have the cash reserves to handle a shock like this. The real money, the big contingency funds, are still held at the national level.
So the county is the fire department, but the national government controls the water main.
And they're taking 6 months to approve the request to turn the valve. The source describes this bureaucratic tug-of-war. The county says, we need the national funds, and the national government says, well, use your own budget first.
And while they're playing this game of chicken, the crisis just gets worse and worse.
Exactly. And then you throw politics on top of it.
Which brings us to the political visibility problem. This part of the analysis was, well, it was pretty cynical, but it felt very true.
It is. The source argues that public money flows toward things you can see.
Roads, bridges, schools, things you can cut a ribbon in front of.
Yes, you can't cut a ribbon in front of drought resilience. It's unglamorous.
So what's the unglamorous stuff that actually works?
The source lists things like strategic boreholes, better rangeland management, and something called pastoral mobility corridors.
What is a pastoral mobility corridor?
It's essentially a protected route. It lets herders move their livestock to find water and pasture without creating conflict with farmers. It's a simple, ancient survival strategy. But maintaining a dirt track doesn't get you on the evening news.
So because it's invisible to the average voter, it just gets ignored in the budget.
It gets deferred.
Yeah.
That's the word they use. And maintenance is always the first thing to get cut. So the boreholes break down, the corridors get blocked. And then when the drought hits, the very infrastructure that was meant to save people just isn't there.
And that forces the country into this reactive cycle of emergency appeals.
Exactly. They wait until it's a full-blown disaster, then they ask the world for money for food aid. It's the difference between paying for an oil change and paying for a whole new engine. They keep blowing the engine.
Let's pivot to the people actually living with this blown engine, the pastoralists. I think a lot of people see herding as this outdated way of life. But the source makes it clear they are the economic backbone of these regions.
They absolutely are. They contribute hugely to the country's food security. But the tragedy is what the analysis calls the asset trap. And this is so important to understand because it explains why people can't just bounce back when the rains return.
So walk us through the asset trap. What is it?
Okay, so think about your own finances. You might have a job, which is your income, and a savings account. For a pastoralist, their herd is both.
It's the job and the savings account?
Yes, it's a biological bank. So when those animals die,
you lose everything, your income, your food source, and your life savings all at once.
You're instantly bankrupt. And here's the crucial part. The emergency aid that arrives 6 months too late, the bags of grain, it keeps you from starving, but it doesn't replace your savings account.
It fills your stomach, but it doesn't replace the cow.
Exactly. Once that asset is gone,
Yeah.
you are trapped in poverty, maybe for generations. The timing of the aid is everything.
Which leads right into the big solution the source proposes, shifting from reactive to anticipatory action.
Right.
We know what reactive looks like. Wait for the crisis, then send food. How does anticipatory action work?
It just flips the trigger. Instead of waiting for malnutrition rates to spike, which is a lagging indicator, people are already suffering.
You act on the predictive data.
You act on the NDMA data. The minute it says rainfall is 50% below normal, you act.
So the alarm goes off before people are even hungry.
Yes. And you can do things like release cash transfers immediately, give families money to buy animal fodder or truck in water. You do whatever it takes to keep the asset, the herd, alive.
And the source claims this is actually cheaper.
Oh, significantly.
Mm-hmm.
The evidence shows that preserving a family's livelihood is a fraction of the cost of supporting them with food aid for years after they've lost everything. It's just better economics.
So I have to ask again, if it saves lives, saves money, and we have the technology, why isn't this the standard? Why is it, as the source says, the exception, not the rule?
It comes back to political incentives and something called the prevention paradox.
Oh.
The prevention paradox. If a government spends, say, 50 million shillings to prevent a famine, and then the famine doesn't happen.
Nobody claps. They just ask why you wasted that money because nothing bad happened.
Exactly. But if you let the famine happen and then you show up with a truckload of food aid, you look like a hero. The political reward is for the visible rescue, not the invisible prevention.
That is just so frustratingly backwards.
It is. And it's compounded by the reliance on international aid. The source has a really sharp critique on this point.
I remember the line, external funding cannot compensate for domestic neglect.
That's the one.
Yeah.
We always look to the UN or USAID to fix these things.
Yeah.
And they play a critical role.
Yeah.
But the report argues that if the domestic pipes are broken, if the governments aren't coordinating, then pouring more international money in the top doesn't help.
It just gets stuck in the same bottleneck.
Precisely. And it can create a moral hazard. If a government knows the international community will always bail them out at the last minute, what's the real incentive to invest in the boring, expensive, long-term prevention?
The safety net might actually be enabling the neglect.
It's a very delicate dance. But yeah, the source implies that. Resilience has to be built from the inside out. You can't just import it on a truck.
So where does climate change fit into all this? The source isn't denying it's real, is it?
No, not at all. It's very clear. Climate change is the intensifier. It's making droughts more frequent, more severe. It's turning up the heat.
But it's not the ultimate cause of the famine.
Correct. Climate change causes the weather. Governance determines the outcome. I mean, think about it. There are other arid places in the world that face massive water deficits, from the Middle East to the American Southwest. People aren't starving there.
Because the systems are built to handle it. The infrastructure is there.
Exactly. The source argues Kenya has to start treating drought not as some episodic disaster like a surprise hurricane.
But as a permanent development challenge.
Yes, like snow removal in Canada. You know it's coming every single year, so you budget for the plows. You don't wait for the blizzard to hit and then try to buy a plow.
You build it into the system. It sounds so simple and mundane.
It's the boring work of governance that saves lives.
So as we wrap this up,
Yeah.
what's the big takeaway for someone listening who sees these headlines and just feels overwhelmed?
I think the key concept is choices deferred. The suffering in Kenya isn't an accident. It's the accumulated result of thousands of small choices to not act. A choice made 3 years ago not to fix a borehole. A choice made 6 months ago to delay a budget release.
It's death by 1,000 paper cuts.
It really is. And as the climate gets more extreme, that margin for error just vanishes. We can't afford those delays anymore.
The source ends with a really powerful thought on responsibility.
It does. It basically says we have to stop asking if we could have foreseen the crisis.
Yeah.
We know the answer. We have the satellites. We have the data. The real question is, when you have the data, is inaction a failure of foresight?
No.
No, it's a failure of responsibility.
That puts the ball squarely in the court of policymakers.
It does. It completely removes the natural disaster excuse. If you knew it was coming and you did nothing, that's a choice.
That is a heavy, but I think a very necessary note to end on. It moves the conversation from one of pity to one of accountability.
Absolutely.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. Thank you for helping us unpack it.
My pleasure. It's a vital story.
And to you listening, the next time you see that headline about drought, don't just think about the cracked earth. Ask about the early warning system. Ask about the budget. And ask who decided to wait. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.